In our deeply interconnected world, the tremors of conflict in one region inevitably send shockwaves across the globe. Today, we turn our gaze to the Middle East, a region historically at the crossroads of civilization, commerce, and conflict. The current escalation of tensions, a complex tapestry woven from decades of historical grievances, political maneuvering, and new geopolitical realities, is not a distant problem confined by geography. It is a global phenomenon. From the price you pay at the gas pump to the availability of goods on your local store shelves, the consequences are tangible and far-reaching. This is the central question we explore today. How are the intricate and volatile tensions in the Middle East fundamentally reshaping global business, our daily lifestyles, and the very architecture of the world economy? The narrative of globalization has often been one of seamless connectivity, of supply chains that operate with clockwork precision, and of markets that transcend national borders. However, this narrative is now being severely tested. The conflicts we are witnessing, from the devastating war in Gaza to the strategic skirmishes in the Red Sea, are acting as powerful disruptors to this finely tuned system. They are a stark reminder that political instability can unravel economic certainties with astonishing speed. Understanding this dynamic is no longer an academic exercise for economists or policymakers. It is an essential tool for every global citizen seeking to navigate the uncertainties of our time, making sense of a world where a drone strike in Yemen can influence the cost of your morning coffee. Over the course of this analysis, we will methodically unpack the multifaceted impacts of this crisis. We will dissect the situation in 12 distinct but interconnected scenes, each one illuminating a different facet of this global story. We will begin by mapping the conflicts themselves, identifying the key actors and their motivations. From there, we will trace the economic fallout, examining the surge in oil prices, the fracturing of global supply chains, and the subsequent pressures on inflation worldwide. We will look at how businesses are adapting, how markets are reacting, and how ordinary people are being forced to adjust their lives and their expectations for the future, demonstrating the profound and personal reach of these geopolitical events. This is not merely a story of conflict, it is a story of consequences. It is about the intricate web that links a militant group in Yemen to a shipping company in Denmark, a central banker in Washington, and a small business owner in Southeast Asia. It's about the delicate balance of the global order and how quickly that balance can be upended. By breaking down these complex issues into understandable parts, we aim to provide you with a clearer perspective, a deeper understanding of the forces at play, and a framework for thinking about what might come next. So, let us begin our journey into the heart of the matter, to understand how the fault lines of the Middle East are redrawing the map of our globalized world. To understand the global impact, we must examine the epicenter, the renewed conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The October 7th attack by Hamas and the ensuing war has resulted in a humanitarian catastrophe. The conflict has reignited tensions, becoming a rallying cry for regional powers. Actors from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen are contributing to a volatile situation. The international diplomatic response has been fractured. Graphic imagery has fueled outrage and polarization globally, leading to protests and a rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. The Gaza conflict has accelerated instability across the region. The crisis has activated a network of proxy forces with dangerous synchronization. The Israel-Lebanon border has become a perilous front. US forces in Iraq and Syria have come under repeated attack. The Red Sea has become a militarized zone. Houthi attacks are holding a critical artery of the global economy hostage. Instability in the Middle East turns the world's attention to oil. The region holds vast reserves and is dominated by OPEC+. Conflicts introduce a geopolitical risk premium into crude oil prices, not necessarily from current disruption, but fear of what's next. Traders fear threats to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the Strait of Hormuz. This rise is a tax on the global economy. Higher crude prices mean expensive imports, weakening currencies, and straining budgets. OPEC+ nations must balance revenue with demand destruction. Consumers worldwide face anxiety at the gas station as crude prices rise. This demonstrates the link between regional security and global economic well-being. The Middle East crisis exposes the fragility of the global energy system. Attacks in the Red Sea reroute energy shipments, avoiding the Suez Canal. This causes logistical and economic disruption. the nightmare scenario remains the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This could trigger a severe global recession. The global economy remains dependent on Middle Eastern fossil fuels. Nations must accelerate the transition to renewables, diversify energy sources, and de-escalate tensions. But first, here's my take. The Red Sea, for centuries a vital artery of global commerce, has become the epicenter of economic disruption. Attacks on commercial vessels by Houthi rebels represent a new phase in asymmetric warfare. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait has been effectively weaponized, forcing a global reckoning with supply chain fragility. Shipping giants have diverted their fleets, adding weeks to voyages between Asia and Europe. The economic implications are staggering, representing a severe tax on global trade. Just-in-time manufacturing models have been thrown into disarray, resulting in delays, shortages, and rising costs. European nations bear the brunt, pressuring the European Central Bank. This is just-in-time breaking in real time, exposing a critical vulnerability in hyper-efficient supply chains. What we're witnessing is a stress test of globalization, forcing reassessment of supply chain resilience. Escalating geopolitical risk in the Middle East often triggers reactions in global financial markets. We're seeing a risk-off sentiment from New York to Tokyo. Investors are pulling capital from high-risk assets into safe havens. The VIX index, a fear gauge, has spiked, reflecting expected volatility. Defense and energy stocks rally with rising oil prices, while broader markets face headwinds. Companies exposed to international trade see stock values pressured. CFOs focus on contingency planning, stress-testing balance sheets against high energy prices and supply chain disruptions. Offshoring is being questioned as geopolitical risks become apparent. Uncertainty may dampen IPOs and slow mergers. Geopolitical tensions act as a brake on the global economy. Airlines face rising fuel costs and rerouting impacting profitability. The tech sector faces disruption due to Red Sea delays, potentially delaying product launches. Retailers face inventory challenges, choosing between absorbing costs or risking demand drops. Defense and cybersecurity industries are experiencing growth. This market bifurcation is a classic feature of conflict economics. Just as central banks thought they had tamed inflation, the Middle East crisis has unleashed new price pressures, a cost-push inflation driven by supply-side shocks. The primary vector is energy prices. As oil prices surge, so does the cost of gasoline and home heating. Red Sea disruptions inject frictional costs into the global economy. Higher shipping costs are embedded into the price of every imported good. This presents a challenge for policymakers, especially central banks. Cutting rates too soon risks embedding inflation, while holding them higher risks recession. The impact is often more severe in developing economies, vulnerable to fluctuations in food and energy prices. Rising costs can lead to social and political instability. This translates into a painful squeeze on household budgets worldwide. Families face higher bills for essential goods and services. This leads to changes in consumer behavior and can create a negative feedback loop, exacerbating economic anxieties. The psychological impact of this crisis can take a heavy toll. It can erode trust in institutions and fuel political polarization. This is a reminder of our shared vulnerability in an interconnected world. A conflict can lead to families having to choose between heating and eating, highlighting the need for social safety nets to protect citizens from economic shockwaves. Geopolitical instability is altering our daily lives. We're seeing a new frugality due to inflation. Families scrutinize budgets, distinguishing needs from wants. This shift is global and personal. Consumers are trading down to store brands. Vacations become local. A missile fired in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait can influence a shopping cart in Ohio. Anxiety shapes behavior, encouraging saving. This signals a permanent change in consumer culture. Consumers are turning to online shopping to optimize spending. There's a trend of supporting local businesses. Consumers redirect spending towards experiences. Subscription models face scrutiny. This behavioral change is forcing a rethink of business models, proving global politics are always local. The global job market is being reconfigured, creating winners and losers across sectors. Industries linked to conflict like defense are booming. The energy sector sees high oil prices benefiting corporations, but also a push towards alternative sources. Sectors reliant on global supply chains face headwinds, leading to production slowdowns and layoffs. Supply chain fragility prompts companies to explore reshoring, potentially reshaping labor markets. Demand surges for professionals navigating geopolitical risks and building robust supply networks. Instability emphasizes adaptability and upskilling, favoring workers committed to lifelong learning. Job security becomes paramount, giving stable employers an advantage in attracting talent. This period's employment trends will highlight resilience and the quest for security. The tourism industry, by its very nature, is a barometer of peace and stability. It thrives on openness, safety, and the free movement of people. It is therefore one of the first and most severely impacted casualties of any regional conflict. In the Middle East, countries directly involved in or adjacent to the current conflicts have seen their tourism sectors come to a near-complete standstill. Ancient historical sites, vibrant markets and world-class resorts, once bustling with international visitors, now stand eerily quiet. The cancellation of flights, the issuance of travel advisories, and the pervasive fear of escalating violence have effectively erased these destinations from the global tourism map. This direct impact creates a devastating economic void. The tourism industry supports not only hotels and airlines, but also local tour guides, restaurant owners, taxi drivers, artisans, and shopkeepers. For many of these individuals, tourism is their entire livelihood, often passed down through generations. The sudden disappearance of visitors plunges entire communities into economic despair. This collapse highlights the profound vulnerability of economies heavily dependent on international travelers. The impact is not confined to the immediate conflict zone. Fear is a contagion, and geographical distinctions blur in travelers' minds. Neighboring countries experience a significant spillover effect. A planned vacation to Egypt or Jordan might be cancelled due to proximity concerns. This regional stigmatization frustrates countries that suffer consequences for a crisis not of their own making. Travelers are redirecting their plans to Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, or Southern Europe. This creates winners and losers on a global scale. The damage to a region's tourism brand can be profound and long-lasting. Rebuilding a reputation for safety is a monumental task that can take decades. Every news report of violence reinforces negative perceptions. The tourism industry is being forced into painful adaptation. There is renewed focus on promoting domestic tourism. Governments are creating incentives for their own citizens to explore their homelands. The crisis is accelerating a shift towards different types of tourism. Business travel may continue out of necessity. Medical tourism could also persist. Some countries may pivot towards resilience tourism, marketing to academics and journalists. The decline serves as a stark reminder of the economic value of peace. The empty resorts and silent historical sites are a loss for the entire world. Rebuilding this vital bridge between cultures will be one of the greatest challenges in the post-conflict era. In times of geopolitical uncertainty, we witness the flight to safety. Investors search for assets that can weather the storm. This represents a desire for stability in an unstable world. This leads to gold. The precious metal experiences a surge in demand. Gold possesses an intrinsic value that transcends borders. The surge in its price is a barometer of global anxiety. Central banks increase their gold reserves to diversify and hedge against inflation. Alongside gold, we see a flight to the United States dollar. Investors seek security and the ability to easily transact. The dollar, backed by the world's largest economy, remains the ultimate financial sanctuary. As capital flows into United States assets, the dollar rises against other currencies. For developing nations, this can be devastating. The simultaneous rush to gold and the dollar paints a complex picture. Investors are hedging their bets, preparing for a future where either ancient or recent history could prove to be the more reliable guide. Crises accelerate history, and the Middle East tensions are reshaping national security. Attacks on shipping in the Red Sea using inexpensive drones and missiles illustrate asymmetric warfare's new realities. This has ignited a gold rush in defense technology focusing on AI. Small actors can challenge major powers, forcing a defense rethink globally. This fuels a new arms race, fought with code and AI. This will have lasting consequences for global power. Nations leading in AI defense gain a strategic advantage, creating a new power hierarchy. Conflicts are building tomorrow's arsenal and defining power in the 21st century. Instability is a catalyst, forcing nations to reassess friendships and rivalries. The threat posed by Iran is pushing Arab nations and Israel into security cooperation. This represents a seismic shift, creating a new bloc. China and Russia see an opportunity. positioning themselves as alternative partners. The long-term implication is a more fragmented world. Fluid, issue-based coalitions may emerge. This makes the world less predictable. Alliances forged in the Middle East crisis are likely to provide the blueprint for tomorrow's international relations. We now turn to the warnings from the world's premier economic institutions. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, designed to steady the global economy, have begun to issue increasingly sober forecasts. They see the current Middle East tensions as capable of derailing the fragile post-pandemic recovery. These institutions highlight the risk of a geo-economic fragmentation, which would severely hamper growth. Their core concern is a prolonged period of elevated energy prices, attacks on the global economy. For developing nations, the consequences are far more dire. A sustained spike in imported fuel and food could trigger sovereign debt crises and social unrest. The World Bank has sounded the alarm on a potential lost decade for development. The IMF speaks of the scarring effects of such crises, where prolonged uncertainty leads to a permanent loss of economic potential. This economic malaise can then fuel political extremism and nationalism. These bodies are telling us that the world is at a critical inflection point. They stress the need for enhanced international cooperation and for building greater resilience into our economic systems. Ignoring these warnings would be a catastrophic error. Let's delve into one of the most feared scenarios: the return of stagflation. The conflict in the Middle East provides a textbook trigger. Ultimately, the message from Washington's twin institutions is one of profound caution. They warn that the current trajectory, if left unchecked, leads to a world that is poorer, more volatile, and more divided. Their forecasts are a plea for preventative diplomacy and a recommitment to the multilateral system. We are confronted with a single truth. In the 21st century, there is no such thing as a truly local crisis. Globalization has bound our fates together more tightly than ever before. This interconnectedness is a double-edged sword. It has been the primary engine of unprecedented growth and opportunity, but also acts as a highly efficient transmission belt for shocks and volatility. Understanding this reality is a fundamental requirement for modern citizenship. The challenges we face are inherently global in nature. They do not respect national borders and cannot be solved by any single nation acting alone. Therefore, the ultimate conclusion is one of shared vulnerability and, by extension, shared responsibility. It demands that we see the world not as a chessboard of competing interests but as a tightly woven fabric. Pulling on a single thread, as we are seeing now, inevitably unravels the entire cloth. This brings us to our final point: the critical importance of understanding these global connections. It is about connecting the dots. The world is complex, and our interconnectedness means we all have a stake in its future. We've journeyed through the complex landscape of Middle East tensions and traced their far-reaching consequences across the globe. We've seen how conflict disrupts energy markets and global supply chains, fueling inflation that affects the cost of living for everyone. We've discussed the shifts in our economies, from the stock market to the job market, and even how these events drive investment into new technologies and safe haven assets like gold. The central theme, as we've concluded, is the undeniable reality of our global interconnectedness. What happens in one part of the world creates powerful ripple effects that touch us all, underscoring the vital importance of global stability. In a world of constant change and complex challenges, staying informed is more than a passive activity. It is an act of empowerment. Understanding these global dynamics helps you make sense of the world, anticipate future trends, and make better decisions for yourself and your family. It is the foundation of responsible global citizenship. We hope this deep dive has provided you with a clearer framework for understanding the intricate connections that shape our modern world and has reinforced why these distant events matter to you right here, right now. Knowledge is the first step toward navigating the complexities of our time with confidence and clarity. If you found this analysis insightful and valuable, please help us continue to create educational content like this. Your engagement is crucial. Please take a moment to click the like button, as it helps the algorithm show this video to more people who might benefit from this information. Sharing this video with your friends, family, or on your social media is one of the most powerful ways you can support our work and help foster a more informed community. We believe these conversations are essential, and your share can help spark one. And finally, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to turn on notifications. By subscribing, you ensure you won't miss our future deep dives into the critical global issues that shape our lives. We are committed to providing clear, in-depth, and non-partisan analysis to help you connect the dots in an increasingly complex world. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the global impact of Middle East tensions. Stay curious, stay informed, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.